Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us today. We're very happy to have eGauge, Sean Schmidt here to do a presentation on their electricity measurements systems and how they can effectively track your electricity usage through and also your solar usage. For any question and answers, we would encourage people to put them into the question panel, where we will probably be doing the Q&A at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, I'm happy to say, Sean, over to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Cameron. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad for a December solar webinar.
And we're all working from home. COVID has been a pain, that's for sure. So happy that all of us are able to actually still sell products and get things out there. So I just want to give you guys a brief rundown. Cameron, if you don't mind just giving a quick review of what you guys do, just
Right.
to put everyone on the same page.
ATS and our dealers are, of course, we're solar distribution, and all of our dealers here today would be dealers and installers for our solar products. They'd be using your eGauge systems for monitoring their clients' systems for precision. They'd be using them for both the residential and the commercial usage.
Okay, perfect. So as Cameron mentioned, we are eGauge Systems. We've been around for 10 years now, at least. If not a little bit longer with development. So we are an energy monitoring system that spends the time to actually track individual circuit usage, whether it comes down to usage or generation. We could track individual monitors or meters, circuit level, when it comes to inverters, wind turbines, usage. So basically, one thing to keep in mind as we go through here is the eGauge is basically just a small computer that can track everything from usage to generation. We could do state reports, things like that. So just to let you know, we are manufactured right here in Colorado. Our circuit boards are manufactured upstate in Longmont, and we ship them back and we do all the manufacturing from there. So as you can see here, 60,000 units worldwide. We're in 56 different countries. We have a GSA contract. We deal with the State Department. We have all the certifications when it comes to ANSI, UL, CSA, things of that nature. So no issue there. We do have 3 models. So the main thing between our 3 models, and feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm happy to answer them, no problem at all. The main difference between the 3 models that we offer is that the eGauge Core has 15 ports. Then we have a residential model, which also has 15 ports, but does carry the home plug power line communication chip set inside of it. And then we also have a 30 port model. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that the different models all have the same functionality. And you can see right here the granularity Oh, there we go. The granularity, so the eGauge does sample about 2,400 times a second, and then we average that data to 1 second granularity, average that out to 1 second for the current hour, 1 minute granularity for the current year, and then 15-minute granularity for a decade. The eGauge itself, all of them have onboard storage, so it's not network reliant. If the router goes down, if there's a problem with the ISP, all the data will be stored on the eGauge itself, so you will not lose any of that data. Also, the same data is accessible directly from the eGauge itself. So the web server, the user interface, data storage, everything is built right into it. So there is no cloud reliance right there. So kind of a differential compared to other meters out there where they need to upload the data to a cloud storage system. The eGauge itself will actually store the data internally. So like I said, whether you direct connect to it or you have a network connection, you're going to be able to see all the exact same data, whether it's the user interface, the graph, spreadsheet downloads, straight from the device itself or remotely, whether you have a Wi-Fi connection, Ethernet direct. We do offer cellular modems as well. And nothing is proprietary. So you can plug in any Wi-Fi adapter, cellular router, Ethernet direct, like I mentioned. And you'll be able to receive all those values. Guys have any questions about that by any chance?
It looks like you answered it actually, so you're good.
All right, yeah, and one thing I also want to mention is the eGauge will do anything from 120, 208, 277, 480 volt direct connection. So there's not a separate unit that you need for specific voltages. All of them can do everything from 120 residential to 277, 480, commercial. So no issues there at all. You don't need a specific model for specific voltage. So. The separate network connections, as I just mentioned, were either Wi-Fi, Ethernet direct, power line communication for certain models. Typically, that's only used for residential. But there's also a cellular connection as well. So you can literally connect any network device or any IoT device directly to the eGauge itself as long as it has an Ethernet port, and you'll be able to remotely see your data using that connection. So these are a handful of what we offer. But like I said, nothing is proprietary, so you can plug anything into the Ethernet port of the eGauge and it'll give you a remote connection. So when it comes to like a cellular modem or a Wi-Fi access point, we do manufacture a powered enclosure kit, which we call the PEK. That basically just gives you an outlet to plug in a Wi-Fi access point or a cellular modem. So whether it comes down to a standard residential unit, or if you're doing a 277, 480, we have a separate model which does have a step-down transformer because these Wi-Fi access points and cellular modems require a 120 volt outlet just to be powered, basically. So if you're in a high voltage situation, we provide a step-down transformer that will be inside of this enclosure, DIN rail mounted. As you can see here, everything is DIN rail mounted. And that will allow you to step down the voltage to power the cellular modem or a Wi-Fi access point just for that network connection. And then, of course, like I said, there's always an Ethernet port on the side of the eGauge itself. So you might not necessarily have to use that. We also provide a free portfolio manager. So this is hosted on our eGauge.net website. We have many companies that have well over 1,000 eGauges, and obviously you cannot look at every single web address itself to make sure your eGauge is online, to make sure it's functioning. It just wouldn't be possible to look at all of those individually. So we give you the ability to see all your eGauges in like a portfolio manager. So you can see KW, KWH over a day, week, month, year, and so on. It also gives you a link to every single individual eGauge that you have purchased. And we ping them once an hour. So you'll see like a red X up here at the top, green check marks, red X's. That's if the eGauge responded to the ping that we did within 1 hour. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the eGauge is offline, but it was for that second that we pinged it. So just an easy way to see everything that's going on generally with your portfolio. You can also do separate individual job names. A lot of our customers do have maybe 10 to 20, if not more, eGauges on one site. So you could say this is this specific job. You can also give the customer access to this as well. So if you do have a, say like a strip mall or something of that nature, which has maybe a dozen eGauges on it, you could have them all grouped into one area, give the customer access to that group, along with you being the administrator and being able to see everything, obviously. The customer wouldn't have any options of changing settings or anything like that, but it would give them the ability to see it, see if it's online, and see how frequent it's online. So the eGauge Portfolio Manager is or eGuard Portfolio, as we call it, very useful. And like I said, that's free charge. There's also the ability to put in an actual destination or longitude and latitude of a specific eGauge. This is very useful for talking to customers and saying, hey, you know, when you're installing PV, there is a ton in your area. This is what we've done. We can show you exactly what their production is, what their usage is, and you know, give them an idea. So it's really a selling tool at this point, just to show that there are many metering points in the area. This is expected production, expected usage. So yeah, just a good selling point. All right, bear with me 1 second. My internet just slowed down. All right, there we go. So the eGauge itself, when it comes to the physical installation, is pretty simple. So whether it's a residential 120 or if it's a commercial 277 480, the eGauge gets wired into the panel itself. That way we get all the voltage references. So the eGauge carries the ANSI 12.2 0.5% revenue grade certification. So to get that, it does need to be wired into all phases of the panel itself. So whether it's a 2-pole breaker, 3-pole breaker, no problem at all. As I mentioned before, every eGauge is capable of doing all those voltages. We just need to be hardwired into the panel so that we get those accurate readings. Because as I mentioned, we do sample about 2,400 times a second. So to be certified with that revenue grade certification, we do need the actual voltage references from each phase. Other than that, you just use CTs to measure the amperage on the different phases. So basically, when it comes down to the eGauge, we need the voltage references. You could put CTs around, and they are split cores, so they're very easy to clamp around any conductor you're trying to measure. We are circuit level. And then at that point, it's just your communication method, whether you want to do Ethernet direct to the eGauge itself, if you want to do Wi-Fi, or a cellular router. Or, as you can see here, there is an LCD screen on the eGauge itself. So some customers we've seen actually just walk up and do a meter reading visually. So that's an option as well. This is an example of a typical installation. So the eGauge is with the new NEC code. Used to be able to install them straight in the panel. That's not a thing anymore. So it needs to be in its own enclosure outside of the panel. And again, that's not anything that eGauge is mandating. It's more just NEC code of 2019, I think, or 2018 was the new code that came out. So eGauge in its own enclosure on the outside. You run conduit over, clip your CTs around whatever conductors you're looking to monitor. Most customers will monitor the mains, but then also sometimes subloads such as HVAC, lighting, plug loads, things of that nature. So you know, just keep that in mind. It does have to be on its own separate enclosure there. Sometimes there's not enough plug loads, or I should say circuit breakers in the panel itself. So you have to do self-tapping lugs. So in this example, this is where they actually are doing tapping lugs on the mains coming into the building for the voltage references. And then they have a little fuse block down here, which is just more protection for the eGauge itself. So we prefer you hardwire it to its own breaker in the panel. If that's not a possibility, if there's not enough breaker slots or you're not able to do that, self-tapping lug out here on the actual main distribution panel is doable as well. As long as we get those voltage references for the accuracy, it doesn't make a difference where we pull them from, as long as we have all phases. This one is 3 phases and neutral. So that's what you're seeing here. They tap the outside utility panel, used self-tapping lugs, used a fuse block down here to the eGauge itself just for, you know, surge protection. And that gives the eGauge all the voltage references that it needs. Anyone have any questions on that?
We have a few questions, which I might bring up at the end, unless you want to get into the Q&A right now, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can jump in right now if you have questions. That's no problem at all. I'd rather get them out of the way as we go, you know?
Sure. So the first question is about the media and the size of the memory within the device, as to how big the memory is and what kind of media is that memory.
So it's a solid state hard drive. Let me get back to this slide here. It's a solid state hard drive. It's about 8 gigabytes, a little less than 8 gigs. It will do, I mean, technically it will do like 60 years. But from what you see here, we'll do 1 second for the current hour, 1 minute for the current year, 15 minutes for the current decade, and then we average it out to 1 day for 40, 50 more years. That is customizable as well. So if you needed longer 1 second data, longer 1 minute data, we can adjust the database to fit your needs.
Nice.
Yeah, it's basically just a set amount of data points that we can store with 8 gigabytes. So, you know, some people do 1 second data for 3 weeks. Some people, yeah, change it. So not a problem.
Perfect. If someone requires more than 30 circuits for a single customer, what are the options?
So if they're looking for more than 30 metering points, then it's multiple eGauges at that point, which is very common for a lot of our customers. I'll show you an example at the end once I get through this slideshow here of customers that have 10, 15, 20 eGauges on one site. We can pull all that data into a master eGauge. And then it's only one web address you have to go to see data from 10, 12, 15 eGauges.
Very cool. And just another quick question here. This is about local connectivity. If you don't have internet available, they're wondering if you can just add a Wi-Fi component so local computers or smart devices can access the data.
Yeah, absolutely. That's no problem at all. So using the USB port, the Ethernet connection, you can definitely just access the data locally. And basically what happens is the eGauge will default to a static IP address if it doesn't have a network connection. So you can either plug in a computer and it'll give you the exact same user interface. You'll be able to see the graph, do spreadsheet downloads as well, straight from a direct connection to the eGauge, or even with a local connection, it doesn't necessarily need to be connected to our proxy server at all. So the web server user interface, data storage, the logger, everything is built right in.
That's a nice advantage.
Yeah, it's basically like a laptop, to be honest with you. I mean, it's got the web server, it's got the user interface, it has the data storage, everything is built right into it. So whether it's connected online, which allows you to access it remotely from a cell phone, from a computer, from anywhere, or if you're direct connecting, you're going to get the same functionality.
And we've got another question here. So this ties directly into each circuit. It does not use CTs.
No, it does use CTs, yes. So it's hardwired for the voltage reference, and then it uses CTs, which you can see up here on the right. And they range anywhere from 50 amps up to almost 7,000 amps. So, yeah, you do have to use the split core CTs for the current readings.
Okay, that's it for now. Carry on.
All right, yeah, no problem at all. And like I said, feel free to ask any questions you have. This is a great example of multiple eGauges where they had a ton of different panels. Some were 277, 480, some were 120, 208. So difference between like commercial HVAC along with plug loads and lighting loads. So they use multiple eGauges here in a single panel. There's 5 of them. They have them all connected to one individual switch. So they only needed one single Ethernet drop for everything to have its network connection. And then they can all communicate with each other, along with giving you the ability to not only see the total like usage or production, but also the individual eGauges themselves if you needed to. But yeah, nice clean installation here, makes it very simple. Everything plugged into one network switch and just one Ethernet drop to this network switch right here. And yeah, gives you the ability to see them all and all of them individually if you wanted to. We also have the option of pulling in inverter direct readings along with other sensors such as CO2, pulse counters like flow meters, whether it's gas or whether it's water. We do have the ability to pull that data in as well. there's a couple different options. So on a pulse meter, if they do an RS-485 output, we can read that directly into the eGauge through one of the USB ports, and there's 2 of them. Or there's also this BF430 to the left over here, which pulls in data over the network. So if the network connected device, so Modbus TCP compared to Modbus RTU, which is on the right there, this RS-45, the eGauge does have the ability to pull in both of those readings, and we can graph it, and we can also do spreadsheets on it. Is that something you guys work with at all? Do you guys do pulse meters, like flow meters, gas meters, or strictly just energy?
To be honest, I'm not sure on that. It would typically be energy, but yeah.
Hey, Sean, we worked with one of their clients earlier, I think it was in November, where they wanted to pull in some fault codes from the inverters. So this would be a good way to do that as well. And that was Great North Solar, I think. And so they're probably going to end up bringing in the fault codes after the PV is added to a project that they're working on.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and every eGauge has that capability. You just might need the converter, but other than that, yeah, any existing eGauges that you have will have that capability to pull in fault codes from inverters or pull in any type of pulse meters, you know, whether, like I said, whether it's a water meter, gas meter, things of that nature. So just keep that in mind. It's a good selling point for the customers, just to let them know, you know, this system will monitor energy, but beyond that, it has a ton more capabilities built right into it. So no extra charges, no extra fees. You just might need a converter or two, depending on what you're looking to do. So definitely a great selling point with the customer. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So one other benefit of the eGauge itself is we can do prediction registers. This comes into point when you have an irradiance sensor, panel temperatures, ambient temperatures. And the main benefit of this is that the eGauge can send a text message or an email, or both. It can do both. If something isn't producing as much as you would imagine. So huge for PPAs. We work with PPAs a lot, and they obviously need to know instantly if an inverter's down, if an array is down, or if there's an issue, because, you know, they're literally paying the customer, part of PPA. So the eGauge allows you to have that functionality where you'll be alerted right away. And this is a user-defined prediction. So we could say, if it doesn't produce this much for a day, for a week, for a month, let me know. And that, you know, it helps you jump in front of the customer, basically. before they call you up and say, I got my electric bill 30 days down the line and I didn't produce anything, because they're not going to go out there and realize they have an inverter failure, or there was a connection issue, or a squirrel literally chewed through their cable. So this gives you the ability, and going back to saying our portfolio manager can be set up that as well. So if you have 100 eGauges, all of a sudden one of them stops producing, it will tell you right away. So it's just a really good just process to be able to jump in front of the customer before they start calling you up and giving you hell that, you know, their electric bill is twice as much as it should be. So
John, how does that notification come through? Is that a text, email, and is there anything special that you have to do on the eGauge to set that up?
It's a text, email, or both. And yes, it is something that we have to set up to say per day, week, month, this array or this inverter didn't produce X amount of kilowatt hours. And we are more than happy to help you guys set that up. As you can see on the bottom here, it's kind of a formula, you know, just figuring out what's going on. We are more than happy to help you with that. We definitely want you guys to get the best bang for your buck. So don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions. Do any of you guys have any questions about that one in particular?
A couple other questions have come in. One, to the CT cables limit in length, or must they be a certain length to maintain accuracy?
So you can do about 100 to 125 feet, twisted pair, 18 gauge cable. Yeah.
And also, this is to the when you've got it set up only on a local system, are you able to upload the data to the web later on for tracking, or would that just all be coming naturally from the device if it ever got set up for the web?
Yeah, so it is all naturally on the device itself. So if it was not internet connected for even 10 years, once you plug it in, you'll be able to look at all that historical data, or you can directly connect the laptop to the device itself and see all the graphs, the interface, all the historical data as well. And then also there are newer devices that have a USB port. You can actually plug a flash drive into the side of it and do a spreadsheet data dump. So yeah, everything is internal.
How easy is it to pull that data off the eGauge?
Exactly what Jeff said. Yeah, there's no problem at all getting any of the data, you know, extracted from the unit itself.
Can you show them? I can't see your screen, but can you show them where that the triangle is to do that?
Yeah, let me pull up a live device here. All right, so this is a live residential install, multiple inverters, car chargers, tracking everything from his stove to his garage. Are you guys able to see that?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, perfect. So as Jeff just mentioned, yeah, if you want to do any type of like downloads or anything, there's a corner up in here, an upside down triangle, where you could do export data to spreadsheet. You select whether you want KW, KWH, or peak demand charges. And then you literally select the exact time frame along with what granularity you want. So whether you want 1 minute data, you know, if I did a month of 1 minute data, it's going to be a huge spreadsheet, but you have that capability if you want. So yeah, second, minute, hour, day, you can select everything, the specific time frame. Granted, KW is going to be an ever increasing value, or KWH is going to be an ever increasing value. So it's kind of like the odometer on your car, where, you know, if you have 100,000 miles, but you drive 15,000 miles, it's going to be 115. So you got to do the difference between the two. KW is going to give you the average of that granularity. So if you do 1 minute values, it's going to be the 1 minute average of kilowatt hours or kilowatts for that minute. Kilowatt hours would obviously be hours. But you can select your different options. So it's pretty simple. It really is, and there's a whole lot of options to give you the ability to get the data that you're looking for. So this screen right here is a one day graph. The red is usage, the green is production. We have had some snow out here, so you know, production isn't as good as our homeowner would like, I'm sure. But there's also other options, such as looking at your actual amperage per second, voltage per second. So we have a menu called the Tools menu. This is where you can back up your data, do a restore, you can delete things, reboot, firmware upgrades, all that kind of stuff. But the channel checker down here at the bottom actually shows you the live amperage, voltage, your hertz. You could see your live wattage. And you'll see some of these are negative, some are positive. So negative is when you're drawing power from the utility. Positive is when you're producing power. So you can see solar taiga right here. Like I said, it's getting pretty dark out here in Colorado. So it's only producing between the two phases, maybe 800 watts, but you can see power factors. So it's really very versatile when it comes to like the different things you can actually record. It's not just kilowatts and kilowatt hours. You could do power factors, total harmonic distortion. You can do flow meters, gas meters, almost any Modbus device, really. So you can see the voltages up here updating every second. Same with the current down here for the separate CTs. Frequency, when it's under 1 amp, they get a little thrown off, but that's normal. And then, yeah, we can set alerts for any of this. So if one inverter is not producing within a certain percent of another inverter, we can set that if the voltage is too high or too low. we can set that as well. Let me zoom out here. So it's basically just an algebra formula. So we could put almost anything in here that you guys want that will send a text message, email, or both. You can see right here is wind speed, new peak risk, low production on the inverters. And that can be sent to multiple destinations. And like I said, it can be email, text message, or both. You guys have any questions on that one? The alerting functionality?
We do have another CT question. What is the CT output?
333 millivolt.
Great.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you do have customers that want to bring their own CTs, they can do that. Oftentimes, a CT does not have the proper CT plug, the little connection that goes into the eGauge. So you'll have to get some of those as well. And then you want to verify that that CT does have that same millivolt output. Otherwise, it'll damage the eGauge.
Yeah, if it is a current output instead of a voltage output, it will damage the eGauge, yeah. So yeah, some CTs have an amperage output and some have a low voltage output, which is what we work with. The low voltage 333 millivolt output. So yeah, that's very important that you don't plug in a current output CT, an amperage output CT into the eGauge. It'll blow it up.
And to follow up about the question you had about the CT extensions, the CTs that we carry have either a 2-meter CT lead, those are the AccuCT rope CTs, or an 8-foot lead, and those are the J&D standard split core CTs.
Yeah, and they can be extended up to 100, 125 feet as long as you use 18 gauge twisted pair wire. Nothing proprietary about that at all either. The CT pins, every CT does come with a 2-pin plug on the end. They can be removed with a small screwdriver, and you can extend that wire and just put the plug right back on the end.
You know, it's probably not a bad idea for you guys to have a box of those somewhere up in Canada. Sometimes they're hard to find, and if you do get someone that loses a few or buys their own CTs, they're not going to have that, and it could hold up their job. And Sean, do you want to just quickly show them where our support page is and how they can check out the repository of articles that we have on that?
We have a ton of videos, documentation, which literally goes over everything you could possibly think of. Cellular routers, CTs, CT extensions, the eGauge itself. So definitely a really good place to take a look, just because it goes over absolutely everything. So yeah, eGauge.net. And then you could see the support page right here. You can also find your own eGauge once they're installed under here. Info about the company as always. And yeah. And then of course,
any options? I wanted actually, there's a question here about triggering. Any options to trigger a contact closure on conditions like close contact when selling back 10 kilowatts?
So we do have BACnet capabilities, so we can export BACnet IP or MSTP to a control system, but the eGauge does not have built-in control systems at this point. But we can talk to, an automated control system for sure, and let it know this, for instance, threshold has been met, drop a contact or open it, close it. But yeah, we're the metering on that point. So
that is on our radar to have an easy relay trigger. I don't know exactly when that's going to be done. So for now, let's just say no. And then when we do get that, we can notify you guys and let you know how it works and what's involved.
yeah, it's absolutely something we've been working on for sure. Just not squared away, not ready to sell it at this point. But down the road, we will have like dry contact capabilities.
So Sean, I'm not sure what you covered at the beginning because I got on a little bit late. Is there anything specific that HES would like to cover that we haven't covered yet? I know we're kind of running up to the hour, so.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, yeah, definitely let us know. I could go on for hours and hours.
It's good to know that you've got that kind of knowledge database going on. But that is all of our questions. If anyone else has any more questions, if you could type them in right now, that'd be great. We do have Sean and Jeff here for just a few more minutes. There's a quick question here. What are the what are the CT sizes that come with the kit?
The way that the eGauge works, it's basically like a la carte. It's like going to a steakhouse. You would buy
So
CTs.
everything actually.
You would buy CTs based on the job and the size of the conductors that are on that job. And that's an important thing. It's not really a kit. You buy the eGauge, you buy the components that go with the eGauge specific to the job.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
everything's.
Yeah, as Jeff mentioned.
These days.
Yeah, yep. Everything is
maybe
different. Yeah.
We do have a kit on our price list, which is the eGauge. It comes with two 100s and 150, and I think that's what he's commenting on.
Yeah, you definitely could have some kits put together on your end. It's probably not a bad idea. You can probably do it based on the size of the PV system, because you know that a 10 kilowatt will have a breaker, like a 30 amp breaker, and so on and so forth, and base it off of that.
I think that is all of the questions, right on time as well. So Jeff, Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate your time and obviously all of this great information that is great for all of our dealers and everybody that was here today. Thank you very much for joining us. We, of course, are going to be doing a bunch more webinars in the new year. So stay tuned for the HAS webinar series and what's coming up. Otherwise, everyone, I don't think there's going to be anything else this year. So